Ladies and gentlemen, there's something magical about love when it's real, when it's deep, when it's safe, and when it's mutual. Every woman has at some point wondered what it really takes to make a man not just like her, not just date her, not just be infatuated for a moment, but fall deeply, madly in love with her. And the truth is, it's not about changing yourself into someone else or playing a perfect role. When a woman walks into a room and owns her presence, when she knows who she is and carries that awareness, not in arrogance, but in quiet confidence, something shifts in the atmosphere. Men notice, not just because of how she looks, but because of how she carries herself. There's a difference between a woman who wants attention and a woman who simply deserves it. That difference is subtle, but it's powerful. A man may be drawn to the loudest voice in the room temporarily, but he will always remember the woman who didn't need to compete, who didn't need to perform, who didn't need to shrink or inflate herself just to fit in. That woman has a gravity to her, a presence that makes him wonder what's going on behind those eyes, what her story is, what she's passionate about, and most importantly, what kind of man would be good enough to stand beside her. Confidence isn't about being loud, it's about being grounded. And grounded women are rare. They don't chase love, they don't prove their worth, and they don't force what's not flowing. They know that if something is meant for them, it will not require constant convincing. And that mindset is magnetic. It creates a kind of aura that draws in the right kind of energy while filtering out what's unworthy of their time. When a woman has standards and isn't afraid to live by them, it communicates volumes without her needing to say a word. Men instantly pick up on it. They notice when you're not giving them access just because they asked. They notice when you're not impressed by superficial charm. They notice when your attention is earned, not handed out like a free sample. And that alone sets you apart, because most people today are so desperate for validation that they'll compromise anything for a moment of attention. But when you've done the inner work, when you've healed what needed healing, and when you're not out there looking to be completed, but rather looking for someone who complements your already full life, men feel the difference. You become the exception. You become the one he can't quite figure out. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you're not trying to be gotten. You're simply being, you're living, you're thriving. And he's either going to rise to the occasion or fade into the background. And either outcome is fine by you. There's nothing more attractive than a woman who is intentional with her time, her energy, and her emotions. A woman who values her peace over chaos, her growth over drama, and her purpose over temporary thrill. And here's what a lot of people don't realize. Men fall in love with women who know how to lead themselves. A man may enjoy the chase, but he falls in love with the woman who makes him want to chase purpose alongside her. That doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means being warm but wise, open but discerning, kind but not gullible. You show him love, but you don't hand him your heart without seeing if he's willing to earn a place in it. You're not rude, you're not dismissive, you're just selective. You understand that your love is a gift, not a transaction. That being with you is not something to be taken lightly. You respect yourself so deeply that you teach others how to treat you without having to lecture them. And the men who are emotionally available, the ones who are ready to love deeply, they sense that. They feel safer, more attracted, more inspired, because you represent what real love should feel like. Strong, steady, and deeply secure. When a man falls deeply in love, it's rarely because of surface level attraction or temporary excitement. It's because he's found something in a woman that allows him to be more of himself than he's ever been before. That's why emotional safety is not just a bonus in a relationship, it's the foundation. Most men live their entire lives carrying weight they don't talk about, shouldering expectations they never asked for, and wearing masks they didn't choose. The world teaches them to be strong, silent, and stoic, but deep down, even the strongest men crave softness, understanding, and the freedom to be human. And that freedom only comes when he meets a woman who sees past the exterior and touches the parts of him that no one else sees. Not because she's trying to fix him or because she's trying to mother him, but because she's genuinely curious about who he is when he's not performing, not pretending, not protecting himself from judgment. Men don't always have the words to describe what they're feeling, and they don't always know how to ask for emotional connection, but they know how it feels when they find it. When a woman asks him a real question, not just how his day was, but what keeps him up at night, what scares him, what excites him, what moments in his life shaped him into the man he is, something shifts inside him. He starts to realize that this is not just someone who wants the highlight reel. This is someone who wants the unfiltered version. She's not afraid of the messy parts. And even more than that, she doesn't flinch. When he's uncertain, quiet, or emotional, that's when a man begins to let his guard down, not out of weakness, but out of trust. Because for most men, the ability to be vulnerable isn't about needing comfort. It's about knowing that when they open the door to their inner world, the woman standing there won't walk away, won't weaponize it, and won't use it against them later. And there's something deeply intimate about being understood without having to explain everything. When you listen to not just his words, but to what he's not saying, when you pay attention to the things that make him feel small or powerful or insecure or alive, when you show up with empathy instead of instruction, with patience instead of pressure, with presence instead of problem solving, that's when he realizes he can breathe around you. You're not trying to control him. You're not trying to fix him. You're simply trying to see him. And in a world that constantly demands performance, that kind of space is rare and sacred. It makes you unforgettable. It creates a bond that physical attraction alone could never sustain. Because love doesn't just grow in the moments where everything is going well. It deepens in the moments when someone chooses to stay when you're not at your best. You become the woman he associates with emotional freedom, and that feeling becomes addictive. You become the voice in his head that reminds him of who he is when the world tries to make him forget. You become the softness that balances his toughness, the safety that allows his strength to emerge with even more clarity, and he'll never forget how it felt to be with someone who didn't demand perfection, who didn't measure his value by how successful, composed, or unshakable he appeared, but who embraced him exactly where he was and still saw potential beyond the surface. That kind of emotional connection is what every man secretly longs for but rarely finds. And when he does, he will protect it, nurture it, and cherish it more than anything, because to feel truly seen is to feel truly loved. And once a man experiences that, it becomes nearly impossible to walk away from it, or to forget the woman who made him feel it. The kind of woman who inspires a man isn't the loudest in the room. She's the one who lives with purpose, the one who wakes up with something driving her that goes far beyond just being in a relationship. And that energy becomes impossible to ignore because men aren't just drawn to beauty or charm or physical intimacy. They are pulled in by something deeper, something that awakens their desire to rise, to grow, to be better, not because they're being told to, but because being around her makes them want to. A man can be surrounded by people who want him, who need him, who admire him. But when he finds a woman who doesn't just take from him, but also feeds his soul with her own fire, her own dreams, her own mission, that's when something clicks inside of him. He doesn't just want her. He wants to become the man who's worthy of walking beside her. He sees her thriving, leading herself, building something meaningful. And instead of feeling threatened, he feels motivated. He sees her loving people with compassion, chasing her goals with focus, treating herself with respect, and it reminds him of who he could become too. That's where deep love begins, not from dependence, but from inspiration. She doesn't wait for life to hand her happiness, she creates it. And that mindset is contagious. She has a life that's already fulfilling, already rich, already beautiful. And it's not because she's never been hurt or broken. It's because she didn't let those things define her. She built herself back with grace, and she doesn't walk around bitter or guarded. She walks around with open eyes and an open heart, not because she needs a man to rescue her, but because she's already done the rescuing. And when he watches how she handles her life, how she speaks about her vision, how she prioritizes her values and her well being, he starts to understand that loving her won't be about completing her, it'll be about contributing to something already amazing. That realization makes him step back and reevaluate what he brings to the table. It challenges him to show up more present, more emotionally available, more intentional, because this woman is not looking for a distraction. She's looking for a partner. She doesn't fall for potential. She connects with alignment. When a man sees that you're not trying to make him your everything, when he realizes that you have a full life and you're simply inviting him to be a part of it, not to fill a void, not to fix your loneliness, but to add value to something already meaningful, that's when he starts to fall in love in a way that's not surface deep, not temporary, not based on infatuation, but grounded in mutual admiration. And it's not just about career ambition or material success, it's about emotional maturity, personal growth, and spiritual alignment. It's about showing him what it looks like to live with purpose, to forgive with power, to love with strength and softness at the same time. You become the mirror that reflects both his greatness and his gaps. Not in a judgmental way, but in a way that makes him want to close the distance between where he is and where he wants to be. You lead yourself. And that leadership lights a fire in him, not because you're pushing him, but because you're pulling him into something greater by simply being who you are. That's what makes you unforgettable. That's what makes him dream of a future with you. He doesn't just want to love you, he wants to build with you, laugh with you, learn with you, grow old with you. He wants to be the man who not only supports your journey, but evolves on his own journey too. Because love at its deepest level is not about two people losing themselves in each other. It's about two people finding more of themselves through each other. And that kind of love can only happen when a woman becomes the kind of presence that awakens a man's higher self, not through pressure, not through persuasion, but through the quiet power of her example, her integrity, and the way she lives her life, unapologetically aligned with who she really is,